Hello and welcome back to 3+1 Media, where we talk about people, politics, and pop culture. And today in politics, we're talking about who really won the 2024 vice presidential debate. Tim Walz didn't win the debate. Now, Tim Walz was not as good as JD Vance. Tim Walz underperformed. Those were the summations garnered after the only VP debate of this election cycle occurred when scanning major news headlines. And I thought to myself, did they not see what I saw? Tim Walz was a master at the craft of the gentleman's debate. And I know that the American people are not used to civility or restraint in politics. We want the clapback. We want the viral moment. And nobody wants it more than Democrats. Democrats bemoan, why didn't he go harder? Come with more rebukes. And by Democrats, to be fair and honest, I'm talking about me, myself. In retrospect, this debate performance was not for me. It was not for us. It was for the few, very uncommitted voters left in the election. And I say uncommitted because I refuse to call them undecided. Because listen, at this point in life, you know who you want to vote for. In 2024, there is no viable choice but one. There is no option for freedom, for democracy, for civil rights, human rights, women's rights, other than one candidate on that ticket. And we all know that. These uncommitted voters want to vote for Donald Trump. They are desperate. They are desperate for a reason, for a scandal, for an October surprise, for her deleted emails, so they can feel comfortable doing what they want to do, so they can logically live with who they are on the inside. That their internal narrative says, see, I'm a good person who makes good decisions based on reasons and not racism. So when Donald Trump and JD Vance do exactly what they have promised to do in Project 2025, they can say, well, I didn't think that would happen. Oh my God, golly gee, wow, I was tricked. But see, the thing is, on that debate stage, Tim Walz didn't give them a reason. On that debate stage, Tim Walz was in control of his words, his tone, his temperament. He projected confidence, intelligence, and discipline. He knew JD Vance would be articulate and poised down to the lash. Tim Walz read JD Vance and Donald John Trump for filth in every sense of the word and every single response that he gave. Tim Walz threw more shade than grandmama sitting under a Mississippi magnolia tree in Meridian while drinking a tall, cold glass of tea, while talking about the pastor who's sleeping with the deacon and the choir director at the same time while the first lady looks on. Now, baby, that's shade. When I looked on social media, people sat up there and they said that Tim Walz started off rocky. Rocky
Weeks ago, a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump talking about crowd sizes is not what we need in this moment. It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. His chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he was the most flawed human being he'd ever met. And both of his secretaries of defense and his national security advisors said he should be nowhere near the White House. Now, the person closest to them, to Donald Trump, said he's unfit for the highest office. That was Senator Vance.
And then he hit like this.
This is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago. He said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever.
And like this.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me. What was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things work best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us from increasing funding for children. It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact-checked it with President Trump.
And like this.
Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. Are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. How can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography? There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today.
What did they see? What did they see? What did they watch? Was it this? Was it this? Is this the reason why? Is there some top secret Slytherin sonar that I cannot see? Because I'm telling you right here, I'm baffled at the response. I was perplexed by the response that I saw all over social media, all over the headlines. I was perplexed until I saw this. This was one of the headlines ran by the New York Times. The New York Times, one of the most regarded, thought to be one of the most reputable newspapers in the world. And they called this debate for JD Vance. They said Vance's dominant debate performance shows why he's Trump's running mate. They called it for Vance on September 30th. They called it on September 30th. The debate was October the 1st. The debate was October the 1st. This was made live and published on September the 30th. Roster that. Do that. Do that. And the New York Times were prepared to spin this for Vance no matter what happened on that debate stage. I need you to understand that and see that clearly for what it is. This is absolutely dishonest lying to the American people. It is dishonest and it is disheartening to see. This is the New York Times. This is who they are and what they've become. JD Vance stood on a national stage and told at least 15 verifiable lies to the American people in the course of 90 minutes. In the course of 90 minutes, as fact-checked by CNN's Daniel Dale. This 15 verifiable lies in 90 minutes, although he only spoke for about half of those 90 minutes. Only about half of those 90 minutes. And you mean to tell me that those lies would in any way be considered winnable in a debate? Absolutely not. It wouldn't be in a real world. It would not be in a real newspaper. But this isn't real world. This is Trump world. This is crazy world. This is MAGA world. And that is the world that we're living in. See, here's the thing. The American people aren't as dumb as Doodle Daniel. And they can't be so easily swayed because it doesn't matter what the media says. The American people know who won the debate because they have brains and they have eyes and they watched and they saw and they came up with the realization that Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, handily won the debate because focus groups said.
What to vote for and what kind of solidified that opinion?
Well, I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris. You know, one of the stark sort of aspects of that debate that really stuck with me was when they were talking about January 6th and how Mike Pence certified the election, and they were wondering if JD Vance would certify the election should Trump lose. And, you know, JD Vance didn't really give us a definitive answer, and I'm disappointed in that fact. And I don't think that I can trust someone, you know, with my vote if they're not going to respect it.
That clearly Tim Walz was the winner. The problem is that a number of Americans didn't watch the debate. And a number of Americans are only going by the quick headlines and glances at the quick headlines, as Doodle Daniel and the New York Times knows. And that's what they're basing their opinions on, and that's what they're making their decisions on. Will this matter in November? I hope that Doodle Daniel doesn't. The actual debate matter and the clips and those who saw it in November. Well, I certainly hope so. Human rights, civil rights, and American democracy depends on the American people making an informed decision about who should be the leader of the free world. With that being said, I hope that you will be well, that you will be blessed, and that you will, no matter what, keep pushing. And I will see you soon.